I stepped into the garden, the gold ring feeling both alien and soothing on my finger. It shone in the sunlight, and a sob rose in my chest. I pushed it back down, stared at the Buddha, and fought back the tears yet again. I reached out my hand and rested it on Buddha's head. It was cold beneath my touch, and I shivered involuntarily. Gently, I tipped the statue to one side and bent down, separating the gravel with my fingers. There was the lid of the metal box. I pulled out more gravel from the box-sized hole Jamie had sunk it into and lifted it out, then put the gravel and statue back in place and took the box into the kitchen with me. I sat at the table staring at it. An unnerving feeling settled over me as I removed the lid. Inside was a cheap Motorola mobile phone and a small bundle of money. I turned the phone on and checked through it. There were no numbers called or received in the call log, no text message history, and no numbers in the contacts file. I lifted out the pound notes, £300 in total, and found beneath them a folded sheet of A4-lined white paper. I unfolded it slowly, smoothed it out against the table, and began reading Jamie's handwriting. 10 Crompton Place, London. Moses Abraham, 16 Dean Street, London. Billy Pierce, 43 Scarborough Avenue, London. Sean Davidson, flat 28, Derby Towers, Enfield, X. Trevor Carter, 2 Dalton Terrace, Surrey. Dave Groom, 91 Ridge Street, Watford, X. My first thought was that the list was something to do with Jamie's job. Was it a list of people who worked for Porterhouse Systems and Solutions, or some of their clients? No, it couldn't be connected with his job, because he hadn't even been going to work, and I'd never heard him mention those names before. Obviously, if he'd taken the trouble to hide it underneath the Buddha, it had meant something important to him, though. Something he was trying to keep hidden from me. Was this list to do with why he'd been leaving the house every day as normal? I took the list into the lounge and turned on my laptop. When I connected to Google, I typed in the first address. Nothing interesting came up. Next, I typed in the name Moses Abraham, but I couldn't find anything. I checked through the rest of the names, but again, I didn't find any kind of clue that might help me. Were they old army mates of Jamie's? I tried to recall the names he'd mentioned in the past, but he didn't talk about them much. I definitely remembered the name Lee, who'd organised some kind of reunion about a year ago. Was there a Dave who Jamie had spoken about too? Possibly. I hadn't seen any of these names in Jamie's phone bills when I'd been looking through them, and Jamie didn't have an address book of contacts because he kept everything stored on his phone, which would have been on him when he'd died. I made a mental note to contact Tony, the coroner's office, and ask what had happened to Jamie's belongings. I sat back on the sofa and stared at the laptop until someone knocking at the door made me jump. It was probably Ava, I thought as I closed the lid and walked to the front door, but when I got there, I saw a man's silhouette behind the obscured privacy glass. I stopped where I was, frozen. Whoever it was could see me hovering there, but I was spooked by the discovery of Jamie's list and the knowledge that Jamie had been hiding something. The man knocked again. I didn't move. The letterbox opened and a voice said, "Maya, are you there? It's Tony Williams, the coroner's office." My shoulders relaxed, and I moved the last few meters down the hall and opened the door. "Hello," he said. "Hi." I glanced at his left hand, which was holding some clear plastic bags. "I'm sorry I didn't call first, but I was in the area and just wanted to return Jamie's belongings that were found with him." He held up the bags. In one I saw Jamie's wallet and briefcase. In a bigger bag were some folded clothes that I recognised as the ones Jamie was wearing the last day I saw him. Another contained a pair of black shoes that he usually wore for work. They were now caked in dry brown mud. "I'll need you to sign for them." A hand flew to my mouth as I stared at the items. "We can do this another time if you like," Tony said. I tore my gaze away from the items. "No, Come in. I was just wondering what had happened to them, actually." I stood back and let him in before leading him to the lounge. "How are you doing?" His bushy eyebrows furrowed with concern. "Not too good." I sat on the sofa and waved a hand in the direction of the armchair. "Have a seat." He perched on the edge and placed the bags on the coffee table. He opened the first bag and pulled out Jamie's wallet and slid it across to me before removing the briefcase. The wallet was found in his trousers. He pulled 2 forms out of his pocket and handed one to me.